Good afternoon and welcome to Jeff and the Rabbi. Topic today I was a little confused on. I'm not even sure if I agree with the rabbi doing. The rabbi is very upset about today's comedy. Thinks it goes over the line, out of bounds. It's attacking people, talking about people, maybe making them feel bad about themselves, low self-esteem. To me, that's comedy. That's what comedy's supposed to be. It's funny, but I was not sure. So what I wanted to do today is I put together a couple test jokes. And I want to play off the rabbi here to see if this is what he means by, good comedy or bad comedy. It was hard because I had to get things that were, in the decorum level-ish for a rabbi show here.
Right.
So if you can just give me a thumbs up, and I got a pen here, so I'm going to mark them a thumbs up or a thumbs down on these jokes to see if this is what you're talking about. So here we go.
Yeah.
First one, nice and easy. What did one ocean say to the other ocean? Nothing. Just waved. That would be nice and easy for you. That's nice, clean.
Yeah.
Okay, nobody offended?
You're going to come to my house.
Right.
Because on the Shabbat lunch, we eat like ice pops.
Right.
And we're all done. They've got a little joke on the stick.
That's where I got this one.
And my wife likes to have everyone read their jokes off of the stick.
A couple of these might not be on the stick.
A
couple of these might not be on the stick. But okay, number two. I thought this is a nice clean one too.
Okay.
I changed the name of my dog to 5 miles, so I can tell people I walk 5 miles every day.
That's great.
And so far, no offense.
Love it.
Okay.
Okay, should we step while we're ahead?
No, I think we got to keep going.
Or is this that was my last chance at decency? Is it going to go down the hill now?
This one's just a little bit.
Okay.
Why is it so hard for a woman to find men that are sensitive, caring, and good looking? Because those men already have boyfriends. No, not that one. Okay, no. Everyone will move on.
Okay, we're losing ground here.
You know you're ugly when it comes to a group picture and they hand you the camera.
Okay.
Okay, no. This one I think you'll like. This is like one of your kind of jokes here.
Yeah.
Your mama is so fat that when she sits around the house, she really sits around the house. No. Okay.
I knew a guy that was like so fat that I saw him on an airplane.
Right.
He yawned and the airbags came down.
Oh, look at this. Hold on. Airbags come down. Okay, no, I'm going to skip this next one. That wasn't even that funny. Okay. Now this one might be a little bit over the line. I just want to see what you think. If you force sex on a prostitute, is it rape or shoplifting?
Way over the line. The line that went way back there. Like the lines in the rearview mirror.
Could that be shoplifting? I don't know because that's
Right.
No, okay, never mind. Line. Rabbi offended. Okay. This one is actually one of my old funny jokes. This is almost like a Torah joke. This is actually in the Torah. Leprosy's in the Torah, so you think you like it. What happened at the leper hockey game? I'll tell you. There was a face-off in the corner. Yes, we're almost done here, so it's okay.
Thankfully, yes.
This one I think you like because I was at a restaurant and I noticed my waitress had a black eye, so I ordered very slowly because obviously she doesn't listen.
Oh yeah.
We're doing well here.
Yeah.
And a final one. This happens to be one of my favorite jokes.
Defects will be investigating.
Yes. Yeah. This is one of my favorite jokes, and this could be offensive to some, but maybe not. What's black and white and red all over and can't fit through a revolving door?
Wow.
Okay, I'll tell you. Yeah. A nun with a spear through her head. No. Okay? That's all I say. The reason I wanted to listen, it was very hard to come up with a list. It was clean. Most of these were pretty clean. So none of these are the offensive jokes you're talking about?
Took you all the way till the end to get to a nun joke.
No, I didn't want to start with a nun. No one starts with a nun joke.
Right.
My point is, this is humor, and sometimes it's making fun of the little people, but is this that bad?
Right.
And then these were kind of clean, but did I offend anyone here?
Yeah.
Maybe Ken of the nun joke here. His mom was a nun. But other than that, did I offend anybody?
No. I mean, just only for your poor... your inability to be humorous.
Well, listen, it's hard without a laugh track.
Yeah,
Usually I have a laugh track. That doesn't work.
Right.
So that's my question is, I find humor, even if it's at someone else's expense, funny. I find it because that way you laugh at them, they laugh at themselves, and everybody gets, everybody feels good at the end.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. What is humor? First of all, if you want to talk about humor, what is humor? Humor is taking things that we all know and putting them in a different context.
Right.
For example, picture this in your mind. A greyhound dog running, and on his side is painted a bus.
Ooh, that's actually funny. Man,
That's funny.
All the jokes.
Everyone thinks that's funny, right?
Yes, I think that's
So
great.
what do you got? You got the bus, you got the dog. Everyone knows the dog, everyone knows the bus. Since everyone's used to seeing the dog on the bus, picture the bus on the dog. That's funny because you took everything that everyone knows and you just changed the context a little bit, just changed it around. That is what humor really is you take something and you move it from its normal context. And, if it's things that people don't know about, it's not funny because no one knows about it. It's seeing it in a different context is funny. Now, there are things, and this is the part that I would really want to focus on, the poor humor that we have today, or what passes for humor.
Okay.
So what people do is, because you have to be really imaginative and think hard about those jokes, the Greyhound bus jokes and stuff like that. So you have to think hard about those. What people do instead is they take something that no one talks about and just says it.
There's a little shock value.
Like just throw out a word of something, like of some, let's say, bodily function that we all don't like to do in public or kind of cover up.
Right.
And then they just will say it straight out. And that is funny because no one expected you to hear it. Of course, after you say it long enough, then everyone expects to hear it. And everyone starts saying it because everyone talks about it. Right. So now you have to find something else. Sooner or later, there is going to come a point where there's absolutely nothing that people wouldn't talk about, and therefore there is nothing you won't be able to get your cheap laugh from talking about something no one talks about because there's nothing else that no one talks about.
And we're almost there.
Right. And we're almost there. Yeah. Now, what do you get from this? So let's say step number one is it starts because it's a cheap shot. The reason it's a cheap shot is because anyone really knows about it. It's just the comedian was the first one that had the guts or stupidity to come right out and say it. So people will talk about, first of all, bodily functions that we don't normally like to talk about or like to do in public. The type of things that perhaps dogs do in public, but we try to go into private before we all do them. Right. And it's like, well, we all do them, why can't we talk about them? The reason that we don't talk about them, or the reason that we don't talk about things that we have, let's say, ideas that cross our mind that are really sick and horrific, which no one ever would admit that they even had such a thought, even though a lot of people have such thoughts, is because we recognize that there's two sides to us. There's a dichotomy, there's a struggle. We could either spiral down to the lowest common denominator, or try to elevate ourselves to be something higher. If you're trying to elevate yourself to be something higher, then what you have to do is you have to relegate the personal, private, lowly type of stuff to the closet, the wash closet, or the closet, or whatever it is. You have to put that away. And you have to say, although maybe I have that idea rattling around in my head, I don't express that idea. What I do is I talk about something nobler and higher. And when you start to close off the one thing and talk about the nobler thing, then you have a shot at actually doing noble actions. When you do noble actions, you actually feel good about yourself. When you feel good about yourself, then you're more likely to want to do more noble actions. When you say, well, I've got all this rotten stuff and I feel so guilty repressing it, so instead of repressing it, I just want to talk about it. And maybe the more and more I talk about it, and the more I find out that everyone feels the same way, then we'll all feel good because everyone has really thought of, like, say, killing babies. Oh, yeah? Isn't that great? So let's talk more and more about that. Then no one has to feel bad about having such a thought. But you know what happens? When everyone talks more and more about it, then everyone is a step closer to actually doing it. And that is horrific.
I agree with you there, and I think that applies to the Oprah Winfrey Show or The View or something like that. It's not really a comedic show. And when I agree. There's some things you don't talk about. But I just take comedy to a different level. I think you're right. When I hear these people talk about on these talk shows, I mean, okay, that's ridiculous. I don't need to hear that. That's ridiculous, and I agree with you. It takes things to a different level. But is that the same thing with humor?
So, like I said, that's not humor. What it is it's what I call a cheap shot.
But you get a lot of that, though. It's
Yeah.
not humor. I mean, I don't think The View is supposed to be humorous, or Oprah Winfrey is supposed to be humorous, and they talk about things that I would change the channel in 5 seconds because I don't want to hear
So
about
when you have a comedian.
By the way, I don't watch The View. I just want to make sure everybody knows that I've never seen the show.
I don't even know what The View is.
Okay,
so,
I just make
I'm a step better than that,
Okay. Right.
So when you have a comedian and the comedian wants to talk about like some bodily function and make all kinds of humor out of that, well, what's the big deal? They're not doing it, and there's nothing unusual in what they're doing except for the fact that they were willing to say it. So what they've done, therefore, is they've just took a cheap shot because they like came out of the closet with it. As I mentioned, there's some words that guys will say but girls don't say. So he says, well, why can't girls say them? Because guys say them. So what if guys say them? What's so good about that? Why can't girls say them? The idea is there is repression, and everyone says it's all about repression. We have to stop being repressed. We have to stop feeling guilty about all this stuff. Come on, there's no reason to feel guilty. There's no reason to feel dirty. There's no reason to feel lowly. Let's just get over it, talk about it, get it out, and we'll all feel good about it. The problem is that once we all feel good about it, because that's the way we are, so then we're a bunch of dogs, because we're just having all these dog functions. If we were to say, you know what, it's true that I do that stuff, but you know what else I do? I do some other things that are nobler and higher. So if I'm going to spend my time talking about these things, I'm not going to really have the ability when the situation comes up to act in the noble, high-minded manner, because I'm going to get stuck in the low-minded manner. So therefore, it's trashy and it's cheap. As I said, just talking to some people the other day, and I said, do you remember when there used to be a term called ladylike? That women would act in a ladylike fashion. Well, we don't have ladies anymore. Is the world better off? Are women better off because no one is a lady anymore? Well, men aren't men. There's no comparison to men. So why should women have to be ladylike? Okay, fine. So now women get to be like men. And guess what? We can all be like dogs. Wouldn't that be great? You don't, if you're ever feeling uncomfortable, you don't have to run around and go look for a bathroom. Just find a fire hydrant. It's great. Why not? Like, what the heck? I mean, don't we all do it? Don't we all feel that way? Then we're all a bunch of dogs. We're all a bunch of dogs. And we're not going to expect dogs. We wouldn't count on a dog to act in a high-minded manner. But what people are missing because of this is that they're not realizing the potential of man. People have great, great potential. They have potential to actually be very lofty and exalted beings and could do things that you could never, ever imagine another person doing, because certainly a dog wouldn't do it, and certainly a person that's just used to just expressing their feelings and their body any way they want, they wouldn't do it. But people can sometimes be lofty. And a lot of times being lofty means containing yourself, restraining yourself, holding back, not just expressing every feeling, pushing through. These are things that people call heroic. People call, this is greatness. And, a lot of times, look at a lot of kids. Kids have parents. Parents have really restrained themselves and confined themselves and limited themselves. And they raise kids because of it. It's a great thing. But that's the only way to do it is by saying, that's not me. I know I have that lowly side to me. I'm going to put that away in the closet. I deal with that. But I can also be an angel, potentially. And then people are much more uplifted, but they don't have a vision of being uplifted. So therefore, the street carries the day, and comedy is lower and lower and lower. What's going to happen ultimately? There's not going to be anything left in the closet to talk about.
So it wouldn't be funny
No
anymore.
cheap humor. Nothing is going to be funny anymore.
Well, okay, and I have to agree with you. I agree with you everything you're saying about keeping some things in the closet. We don't have to talk about everything. We don't have to get everything off our chest. I totally agree with that in the Oprah Winfrey setting. My worry is, just to take the other side of this, on the comedy side, the fact that we still have a situation, almost like what you just said, that we still have a situation that you can say something and people go, oh, I can't believe the person just said that. That's so shocking. Maybe even shows that we still have some decorum left in this world because, listen, I agree. You're talking, when people come on shows and tell you things, I can't believe the person just said that on a talk show. I don't care about what they do in the privacy of their own home. But the fact that they can say one of these things that will shock you so does show that maybe, listen, we still have some ability to be shocked by this.
Yeah.
So it's not normal. It's not normal in society because it wouldn't shock me if it was normal.
But the problem is that we are lauding, as I heard recently this week, a interviewer lauding a person for reaching new, what she called highs, but I would call lows in exposure. A movie's out, and in the movie it's got a comedian doing a bit on how she plans to have an abortion the next day.
I'm with you on that.
Right. Now, the abortion, even if you say it's her right, it's her body, that's right. As a matter of fact, it's so interesting. The reason why abortion is legal, because the woman has a right to privacy. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
The reason abortion is legal, Roe v. Wade says women have a right to privacy. But now she's talking about it publicly, so I guess she forgoes her privacy. And the fact that she doesn't think that, okay, so she has an abortion, let's say she has that right. Now, if not, the child would have been born, it would have been a human being, so she decided that she's going to just do away with that. Which is her decision. I'll give her that decision. Is that humor? Is that actually humorous? Is that something that she does for a stand-up comedy? That a person can talk like that? And people go, they get a good laugh. Ah, ha, ha. Well, what's next? What's next? Next is that the babies who are a day old and they decided to terminate them? Is that going to be cute? Is that going to be funny? And these things desensitize people. And the more and more we're desensitized, that paves the road for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing until really it's just chaos. We're all going to be running around with clubs just, beating away at each other. Unless, of course, something drastic happens. But it's a degeneration of society.
No, I totally agree with your comments on the degeneration of society. And I see it every day, and I agree with you. Well, then it comes down to the question, if that's not humor, now I understood at the beginning you gave your definition of humor with the bus on the side of the Greyhound. I got a little chuckle out of it.
That's cute.
I didn't LOL right now. I'm going to tell you, I didn't LOL.
Okay.
You didn't hear me LOLing, so
right.
I worry about that. So where does obviously a comedian is reaching for new bounds.
Right.
So where does he go? What do you accept? And here's the worst part: who's going to decide what the comedian does? I totally agree with you with the abortion thing and the woman praising, oh wow, it's so great she can be so open. But what's comedy?
Well, if you really want to take it back.
Take my wife, please?
Yeah.
That was funny.
If you want to really take it back, the guys that really started breaking this whole thing down, if you want to go way back into ancient history, there's a guy like Lenny Bruce. So Lenny Bruce started using 4-letter words in his comedy routine.
He was probably the first one.
Right, and he got arrested for that.
Yes.
And he got arrested for that repeatedly because there were supposed to be some things that were off limits. Now, he started that, and he was trying to do is break the boundaries. He wasn't really being very humorous. He wasn't being so talented. He was just trying to break boundaries. He was just trying to shock people. Right. And everyone laughed because they were so startled to hear that word. Of course, once he's done with that word, now you can go to comedians and nightclubs, and all they do is say 4-letter words, and it's boring, right?
True.
So they have to come up with other stuff, right? And other stuff and other stuff. But what really it is it's just desensitization. This whole idea, though, of breaking boundaries as a society that has a goal of trying to break boundaries. Well, this is where I'm at. I'm for building more boundaries. Isn't it an interesting coincidence? If you ask people, go to psychologists, right today, what's the biggest problem that our society faces from a sociological, emotional perspective? You know what it is? Poor self-image.
True.
Tons and tons of books are being written about poor self-image. Isn't it so interesting that the same society that spends a lot of time bringing out all of the lowly physiological comedy about our function that talks about everyone wants to talk more and more and more about all the rotten things that rattle around in our heads, and yet this society is outstanding as the society that has poor self-image. So interesting. The society that keeps on being more and more and more open has poor self-image. Well, when you're being open and you're talking about people having all the lowly drives and all the base instincts and all that, and yet at the same time poor self-image. I wonder where they got their poor self-image from. And yet, a society that, you have a regressive, repressive society, you can't talk about this and you can't talk about that, and you wouldn't talk about this in genteel company. Once upon a time, women used to perspire. They didn't sweat. Women perspired. Men sweat, women perspire.
Right.
It wasn't like ladylike, okay? So, are we better off now that women sweat? Is that better off? Is everyone better? So, is it strange that when women start to sweat, now they have more self-image problems? So, which is it? Do we want to build people up, or do we want to tear them down? And our society is trying to tear them down, and comedy is the cutting edge. Because comedy is where they go for that shock value, comedy, entertainment. That's where they cut, and that's where they desensitize. That's where it emanates out from. Sadly enough, if you look back at a lot of the old comedians, it was a lot of those Jewish comedians were like very cutting edge in doing that and trying to break boundaries.
I mean, believe like Don Rickles. Okay, I mean, he's a funny guy. Yeah. I thought he was hilarious. But again, his whole thing was to cut you down and
rip him down.
You apart. He still does at 90 years old. I think he's still doing that. Yeah.
Amazing.
But I laughed. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I thought it was funny stuff.
Yeah. I'm sure it is. And you know what else? If you saw someone coming down the steps, and they slipped on a banana peel, and they fell, and they threw all the stuff, and all the stuff crashed all over them, and and they slid down the steps, and as they went down each step, like their head bounced off of each step. The more steps that it bounced off of, the funnier it would be.
I would check to make sure they're all right. Then I would laugh.
Right. Then of course, then the guy's laying there with a broken neck. He's got 4 children, and they're now all going to be suffering, and he's going to be in like a body cast for like the rest of his life. And he's a paraplegic or something like that.
That's not funny.
That's not funny. But when he was when his head was like hitting the edge of each of those steps on the way down, right? Very, very funny.
Three Stooges, does that bother you?
Yeah.
The whole.
Right.
Hit him on the head so many
Personally,
times.
I have to say, I never got into Three Stooges.
Those are Jewish guys.
Yeah, I never saw what was the big deal. Anyone could do that stuff.
Well, it was back then. They were the first ones to do it, though.
Right.
Laurel and Hardy, you get the fat guy, the skinny guy, that wasn't funny.
Right. But at least, like some of these guys, Laurel and Hardy was also kind of like that slapstick type of stuff. No, I wasn't so into that. Yeah.
So what the rabbi is saying, if I can translate here, he says, you quit somewhere around Laurel and Hardy. That's where he's at in the comedy thing. Somewhere around Laurel and Hardy. If you make it anywhere up to like Lucille Ball or something, that's just gone too far.
Well, like Abbott and Costello, at least they had dialogue.
It was kind of inane, but it was.
Yeah, but at least it was some type of dialogue.
That was
right.
Good stuff.
So I'm just saying that we have to start.
Oh, if you remember that other show we had.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
I'm agreeing.
Cube head here.
I'm agreeing. You see, I agree with everything you said about what's going on in society. I just never took it to comedy. I guess now I see where you're going with it.
Yeah. So comedy, I believe,
is progressive like everything else,
right.
Unfortunately.
And comedy is actually not progressive. Comedy is the cutting edge. Comedy is where the society lays out the next frontier. Because comedy, what has happened recently in the last century, is that comedy is, instead of being funny, like where you have to stop and think and rearrange things. So comedy says, what is it that people don't talk about because it's like hidden inside of them, and we'll talk about that.
That's true.
And that's just cheap shots. What is going to happen ultimately is there won't be anything more that's hidden to not talk about. And along the way, there is this degeneration of the stature of human beings as we bring out more and more and more.
I agree with that. Now, on the subject of comedy, are you against? The comedy is kind of, humor when laughing at someone. I don't mean laughing at them because, as you say, they fall down the stairs and they break their neck. The old starts with a throw the pie in the face type thing. You think it's funny all the way up to later on, where it's.
I never got the pie in the face thing either. I tell you the truth, I
Did you ever
didn't.
watch Blazing Saddles? Did you like Blazing Saddles?
Okay, Blazing Saddles, yeah. You know, like the Blazing Saddles, there were some.
And there were some bodily function jokes in that.
Yeah,
one.
there were some in that,
You know,
right?
I
And
laughed
which I
hysterically.
thought, you know, I personally thought, again, some of those were cheap shots, but some of the lines, you know,
I laughed
were
at every
very
one of them.
funny, right? You know, like the guy is, you know, the guy's like all by themselves, and they got attacked by Indians, so he had to circle the wagons, but he only had one wagon, so he drove around in a circle. Okay, that's cute. You know,
That's funny humor.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's, you know, but you know, it could have been mocking the intelligence of the people of the Old West.
the Indian
Right.
guy, the Indian chief
That's
speaking
right,
Yiddish,
right,
right?
that's right.
That was very funny. You know.
That was good stuff.
Right.
So I mean, I like humor, but again, I think sometimes if you can't, I agree with you on the shock value stuff, and I see where that's going. But if you can't laugh at life, sometimes it gets people that they can laugh at life, then it's not as bad. You know, so sometimes it might have the opposite effect we're talking. I mean, they go through life, things are tough, and things, again, society's so progressive. You can't say this, you can't say this, you can't say that. Then you watch a comedy show and they say all that and you laugh and everybody relaxes a little bit.
Well, you know what I think is the funniest, real funny comedy is when people make fun of the pettiness of people, which is, you know, like the Seinfeld where he like does, he takes apart the Florida retirement communities where they've got like all these rules so that like no one can actually do anything at all. You know, like there's just rules upon rules upon rules, and they got, you know, they got the swimming pool and the golf club, but no one can ever like touch anything because it's always like the wrong time.
That
the wrong
was actually
place.
funny.
Yeah, so that's funny because it shows how people can get so bent out of shape. So that is really appealing to people by casting humor on it to rise above it, to be bigger. There is humor that can actually appeal to people's
But was
noble
it funny
side.
when they were making fun of, obviously, it's just like typical old people, they don't have to turn the air conditioning on and saying, Mrs. Seinfeld, please turn on the air conditioning. Is that funny? You're kind of cutting down old people, and she didn't even know where the air conditioning was.
Right.
That was kind of funny.
Right.
I see. I agree. I know exactly where you're coming from here. You know, listen, we can go so far that there's nothing left. There's no new frontier to destroy.
Right.
And I understand where you're going there. I get it.
And the law, so there's, you know, when you have a comedian, and the comedian is known for breaking new ground, and then the interviewer is lauding him, says, gee, you know, so much of the stuff when I was being raised we never talked about. Well, yeah, you know, and have things gotten better? What would you say, all in all? Maybe they'd say, yeah, they have gotten better because now we don't have to feel guilty about all this stuff. Because the bottom line really is here is you don't want to feel guilty. So there's two ways not to feel guilty. One is not to do it, and the other is to normalize it. But when you normalize it, then you might not feel guilty, but you don't feel uplifted. If you don't do it or contain it or repress it, then you can actually feel exalted. And the pity is that people don't have an avenue, they don't have a model of someone. You know, why does everyone like the It's a Wonderful Life? You know, because the guy became something noble.
I agree.
You know, like
I
he
totally
tried
agree.
to rise above it. He acted nobly. That's what people like, because when you walk away from that, you can say, hey, you know, you can really feel good about yourself.
I agree.
That would bring back good self-image.
One of my favorite movies. I agree. No,
Everybody's
you
favorite
feel
movie.
good about it. I agree.
Everybody's favorite.
I do a
movie.
great impersonation, by the way. I can really do that. Oh, Merry Christmas from my beautiful savings alone. That sounds just like him.
There you
Pretty
go, just like it. I would recognize it anywhere.
That's pretty good.
Right, and notice that they always do it at that time of year. Why? Because that's when everyone is thinking like, you know, maybe I could be a better person, and maybe next year I'll be better. So they put stuff like that. But we don't have images like that out there. We don't have comedians or anyone that really is appealing to people to become more noble. What we have instead is what's really making us laugh is just ripping us down.
I got to agree with that part of it. I got to agree.
That's my piece.
All right, so
I'm
bottom
sticking with
line,
it.
Stick with that. Bottom line is Laurel and Hardy. Maybe with those Keystone Cop guys. That was back in your childhood, right?
Right. That's
Little
right.
Rascals. Maybe
That's
not.
right.
I don't know. Little Rascals might go
That's
too
right.
far.
Yeah.
Let's quit right there. No comedians after that.
Right.
Fair enough. I get the point. So maybe Rabbi Friedman's saying even in humor, progressivism doesn't work. I mean, that's what the bottom line
Yeah,
is.
right. Regressivism.
Regressivism in humor. All right. Good show. That was good. I like it. Take my wife, please.
Yeah.
All right. See you next week. Jeff and the Rabbi.